All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and jump into our topic today. So every Sunday is live. You get one shot. What we're going to talk about right now wasn't live, but the pressure, arguably quite a bit higher, because when we're in content creation mode, as we all know, content lives forever. What we're talking about today is what happens when a team that is already doing things at a very, very high level of excellence says, we want to push further. We want to head in maybe a different creative direction. How can we make it even better? Daystar Television, who is our featured guest here today, they've been doing broadcast for years. Proven, consistent, working. But then the question became, what if we pushed it further? What if we broke some patterns? What if we thought outside the box? And so the purpose of today's the opportunity to do this came about last spring, when Daystar was capturing their annual night of worship for content to be shared throughout the year on TV, as well as a live album to be released publicly. And so this panel is not about gear. This isn't a highlight reel. My goal is for us to unpack how a team thinks and how they approach this process, how vision gets translated into something real. And for most of you in the room, whether you're in a church or in a broadcast environment, the challenges are all the same. Different scale, same problems. And so what I want to do is kind of pull back the curtain today on what that creative process looks like, and not just what they did, but how they thought. So with that in mind, let's start here. I would like to have us introduce the panel to introduce yourselves, and just your name, and then I'm gonna throw this up a little bit to just keep you on your toes a little bit. I want you to answer one of these two questions as a part of your intro. What's the most pressure-filled shoot you've been on? Or who's the most demanding creative you've had to serve? Jeff, you go first.
Well, my name is Jeff. I would say
Jeff, who are you with?
I'm with Daystar. I'm sorry.
Great.
I would say it's a mix for me on our live production, our normal live show. It's a very high stress situation, but this night of worship that we're talking about today was probably one of the highest ones that I've been involved with because it was so different. We wanted to try something different with it.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Lee, not to be confused with, I am from AbelCine. And I guess to answer your question, for me was probably, Elton John's last show at Dodger Stadium. I was told that I would be one of the judo cameras for the first day. It was a 3-day show. I didn't realize that I was the only camera that night. So literally all the crew, all the audience, was on that one judo that was on stage, because they wanted to do that capture to be able to get closer to Elton and his band and everything else. And then the live stream, which was going to happen 2 days later, would have all of the other cameras playing. But this way they don't have, you could shoot through the haze a little bit easier when the cameras are closer and so on and so forth. But, yeah, that was a bit of an eye opener when I walk in thinking, oh yeah, I'll be there. I'll be on stage. And then the next 2 days we'll have the Agitos in a different position. And it turns out oh no, you're the only camera. And I, the director in the comms were basically the AD and the director and me and our camera operator, of course. So that was nerve wracking.
Michael McNamara. I'm based in Los Angeles. I'm a multi-camera director, editor, and producer. Most challenging client was Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin fame. It's a story that's going to take way too long to tell, but he did quit the project in the middle, and I was tasked with bringing him back, stroking his ego, and seeing the project to full fruition. I'll never forget it. Watch out for rock stars.
Good after morning or whatever it is. I'm Rick Siegel. And I would say the most difficult, just to answer it quickly, Barbra Streisand, Barbara Walters, Mariah Carey, J-Lo, I could go on, were the most difficult. Why? That's a story for another time.
And I guess I didn't introduce myself. My name is Tim Corder. I'm the Vice President of Faith and Performance for Diversified. We're a global systems integrator. In the course of this conversation, I think I was blessed to serve as a bit of a matchmaker and just help connect some of the parties together for this, and then had a front row seat to watch the masters at work. So it's a high honor to have the ability to talk about this project with you today. So with that in mind, let's dig into, ultimately let's frame the problem we were trying to solve. Let's frame the opportunity. Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about this project, and give us a little bit of framework around it, and then speak to some of the goals that were being outlined for this project.
So like what Tim said, we do a yearly worship night project for specials throughout the year and for an album. And at Daystar, like Tim said, we've been doing broadcasts for many years. But we're like, what if we took it to a more cinematic look? So we started switching our normal shows to a more cinematic look. But then we got to the night of worship last spring and we said, what can we really do to make it look different and have a different feel? And we really wanted to push that cinematic look to see how far can we take it and then be able to also take it to our normal productions that we do. So we got with Tim and the AbelCine guys, and we're very happy with how it turned out.
So when you were thinking about, elevating and changing the style, what was driving that? What wasn't good enough in your mind, or what was driving the creative, direction to think outside the box? Why not just do it the way you've always been doing it?
Well, our thing was we wanted to do something different than what normal religious broadcast normally does. We wanted it to be different. We're like, everybody else can do it. Why can't we do it in the religious point of view? And then, our leadership was also like, hey, let's try something, and like I said, everybody seems to be happy with the switches that were made.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, I've just tried to push in a little deeper into, more specific language. And at the end of the day, I think, when a creative team comes to the project, it is most common to get the broad stroke kind of answers that Jeff, that you just gave. So I think my question to Michael, start with Michael, is to ask, you get that broad language. You're told to, we want to break the rules. We want to do things that haven't been done before. We want to reinvent our image creatively somewhat. What's your first, what do you do with that? How do you translate that broad language into, what's the first step?
You break it down. We were gifted with the fact that they had done it. It wasn't annual, and there were just simple and many changes that could be made that would improve its visceral impact. Having to do with blocking, having to do with camera angles, having to do with lighting in terms of drama and mood, articulating that every song had its own vibe, its own feel. And that went to blending with the graphics for the screens that they had done as well. Some of it was cleaning the stage a little bit. They've worked with and if this is too much, slow me down. They worked with a fishbowl to contain their drummer on stage, upstage center, to isolate out for sound purposes so that they didn't get the pollution on all the vocal mics. And I think they've done it before, we moved it off stage and found a matching insert stage so that we could include him visually, editorially after the fact in the process, and then shot him accordingly. And it kind of worked.
That's one of, we'll show you the finished result at the end. I think that's one of the coolest elements of this, that is an outside the box thought that I think a lot of others could take from, right? Is you immediately think, well, the drums have to be there with the band. But the reality is you were able to create some suspension of disbelief, and
they've got to be in the final.
Know the difference, right?
Or, hey, you're too loud, go in the other room.
It's also a bit of theater craft.
Sure,
that sleight of hand of, oh, the drummer's not in the room, but so the story at home, we don't know that.
That's right. Speak a little bit more about. Let's talk about what did you intentionally change. You mentioned blocking. You mentioned let's talk through some of those things.
Okay, well, they had done them before. You know, it's a diamond-shaped stage. It's a square that's twisted 45 degrees. They play to the point, but when they performed prior to, there was a straight line across the center. It left us with a lot of negative space up front that was begging for somebody to be in it. Also, in terms of playing for various depths for camera angles, you want various planes that you can work with. So the first thing we did was to bring people downstage, which it was a little rough on their audio scenario since they had set it up for a certain kind of monitoring, but really worked in terms of cameras because it brought our featured players really close to us. And I love, along the cinematic lines, I love the super close-ups. I like super wide wides. I like raking angles that tie everybody together that are always evolving. And I like lateral movement. I don't know if it's too soon for cameras. Should we talk about how many cameras we put in the room?
Yeah.
We put a lot of cameras in the room, and it's a small room with a low ceiling. And I wanted, the only thing that lives in the center is our crane, our Scorpio. Everything else played out of that aisle because we wanted those low, slow, creeping moves. Going back to John Ford in terms of reveals and establishing shots. But then we had, following the angle and going parallel with the angles of the diamond-shaped stage is how we placed our Steadicam platform, how we placed our Agito platform. So it's just, you're always gathering and losing people in terms of like compositions always evolving. Super cool. But we had almost like 4 layers of stacked activity. We had steady and handheld on the floor. Come up one level, we have platforms on either side of the center, Agito on one side, Steadicam stepping up there on occasion. Going up the next level, we've got 4 close-ups, 2 to a side off of center, and then you've got a jib above that still has the latitude to come down in the center and just make the most and kind of tie it all together. It was a lot for a little bit of room, but I think we worked well with the space, and I think the shots are the proof of the pudding.
So, Rick, talk about that from a director of photography perspective of, okay, I asked Michael the question, I'm going to ask you the same question. Let's start with, there's broad language. What do you do with this first from your perspective? And then how do you and Michael partner together in all of the various things that Michael just mentioned?
Michael and I, AbelCine, Michael and I were brought in about 2 weeks before the actual filming was supposed to start. So there was an awful lot that was in place. I met Jeff, and I think Laney was supposed to be directing originally, and then Michael came in, and anyway, they wanted to have fresh eyes. We got fresh eyes. So Michael and I started to chat. And the givens, because we were there 2 weeks before, the studio is only some certain size. The riser they're all standing on is a certain size. The lights are already in place. The audience is going to be standing. Now, how do we film this? How do we actually get a lens on the talent performing? So we actually just figured out where we could put cameras. Then we did a little multiplication. There's a row of singers. Sometimes they're main players, depending on the song. You need a certain amount of close-ups. You need a certain amount, and able to tell the story a great way, in a cinematic way. All of that, lots of chats with Jeff, lots of chats with Michael and I, and we came up with a formula to tell the story in an exciting way, and through lighting and camera use to make each song of 12 or 11? 11 songs. 11 songs. Give each one its signature, or at least have groups of 3 or 3 and 2. So these 3 songs, they may not be songs 1, 2, and 3. They might be 1, 7, and 8. And give each one a look so that in the final release, if they were released in a linear way, they would all have their identity. So we set some rules, gave ourselves some ideas based on those rules, took the size of the room, the schedule, because you can't forget the schedule. You have talent up there. They're going to come in a certain day. This is all part of doing what we do. Jeff and I worked on lighting. We basically pulled things apart and put things back together. keeping Jeff's aesthetic and gave each song its identity, or groups of songs its identity, and Michael's song, and that was, it was about collaboration, finding a common language, and making our decisions based on the results of that language.
So I want to piggyback off of that before we head to Jeff Lee for a question. One, as you're developing that language and as you're developing this strategy, give me some specifics of how do you interact with the Daystar creative leadership and bring them along for the ride in those decisions, right? And you obviously weren't working in a vacuum. There was a highly collaborative environment, but for both of you as essentially outsiders coming into an established team, give us some specifics about what that tangibly looks like, and how do you partner together with the creative team that works together every day?
Just to make it clear, Laney is the current Daystar director who directs all of the shows. He didn't step aside because Michael was there. He wanted to step aside to have another fresh pair of eyes. So how did we develop that language? I'll leave it to Michael to start, but it's about asking the question, why? All right, you do it this way all the time. We want to do this differently this time. And I ask the question, why? And listen to that answer. And from that answer comes a lot of information that goes to decoding and figuring out how we will approach.
Yeah, that. It's great to have two directors in the booth. It's not for everyone. But Lane was just a great reference, and it was always yes. He was so open to something new. Best cheerleader in the world at the same time, a respected peer. And it was a benefit to have him there. I just want to mention one thing. It was pressured, but we're also isolating for editorial, which you don't always get to do. You know, usually it's a live, and live and die on the switch, live and die on your live cut. And this was a matter of having double takes on every song, where the first take would be dirty, get greedy for coverage, get in each other's way a little bit, get the best shots possible, with the second pass coming out and doing save super clean, no cameras in the shots, and then combining those two passes for every editorial cut. And it worked out really well. It's a great way to work when you can work that way and there's not the pressure of having to go live.
So Jeff Lee, speak a little bit, and Michael and Rick, speak with Jeff Lee about, an important part of AbelCine's involvement in this was both playing matchmaker and bringing the two of you to the party, but then also there were a number of supplemental technology needs in order to convey this vision in this direction. Michael and Jeff and Rick, can you talk a little bit about some of those specifics of what Michael, you mentioned in passing the camera plot. Let's talk a little bit about, the role of the technocrane. Let's talk about the role of the agitos. And then Jeff, from your perspective, how do you take the information that Michael is the direction that Michael and Rick are thinking about and help make that reality for them, right? So let's start with Michael and Rick. Talk a little bit about the specific tools that you decided that you needed in order to convey that creative direction, and then Jeff Lee, piggyback off of that.
The flexibility of a technocrane is unparalleled. It is the most cinematic, going back many years in Hollywood, in terms of what it can do in terms of its tromboning, its scale, the height, the lows, the way you can just bring people together. Second to that also is Steadicam. I love surrounds on pivots. It always wants to be an evolving world. You're always wanting to find something new. We had a gift of 2 Steadicams. I think at one we had 3. There was a miscommunication on booking. We lucked out. It was really great because then you get to work with 2 at once, or you tag team somebody in. Okay, you're next. And it becomes this whole yin yang. Agito is, I can't say enough about. It's a great, great, great tool. And its flexibility, its accuracy, the parameters of what you can do with it in terms of heights, speed, I can't say enough about it. Not that we needed the race, but it's when finessed properly by a maestro, it's unparalleled.
Yeah, to that point, I think tools like the Agito are great in that certainly accuracy, but also footprint. The track is not as wide as a traditional dolly. The speed, you're not relying on an operator to push pull in the heights, and getting really interesting compound moves where you can adjust height and or zoom at the same time you're moving laterally for those really interesting shots, especially when you're parallaxing it with audience heads to, let's say, the lead singer. And yeah, I mirror what you're saying about the techno, because that it leads to so many interesting shots because it becomes a jib that pushes in through a crowd.
Right.
As long as you park them properly and don't bonk anyone on the head, it becomes a beautiful tool to kind of push through a crowd or reveal, something from a crowd. And yeah, I think we were really happy to be sort of in that process of collaborating with, AbelCine is fortunate, and we have a great network of friends of the family at this point, present company on this stage included. So for us to be able to pull resources from, a city that we don't have a headquarters in or an office in, and be able to bring in talent from across all walks of life and just accomplish what is obviously just such a beautiful project. We're just happy to be part of that, and supplement with some of the technology. Daystar obviously has a wide wealth of cameras and lenses. The AbelCine can supplement if there's anything that's not present at Daystar's site.
We had there were a certain amount of Venice 2s at Daystar. We supplemented to get to the increased number of 11. We wanted 4 24 to 1000 Duvos to do 4 portraits from back of the house. Those didn't exist at Daystar. So there was lensing, there were camera bodies, there was support that came in all through Abel, just to speak to numbers of technology.
And people from all over, people from Los Angeles, people from crew from Los Angeles, Nashville, New York, and there they are. And I think we did, Daystar has their team too. I think we made the best of both worlds in terms of bringing in ringers, working with their ringers, and ended up with a great balance of talented individuals.
So then let's talk a little bit. We've talked some about the camera tools and the motion tools, and ultimately conveying, the game plan for how to capture this. Let's talk about the lighting perspective of this. Jeff, as Daystar's lighting director, Rick is the director of photography for this shoot. What did all of this mean for lighting?
Well, traditionally at Daystar, we've always done a very soft, flat lighting. That's what our president, Joni, prefers. And at this point, it was, once again, that what if thing. What could we do to give it more of a dramatic feel, but still be able to keep Joni happy when she is on camera? And that's where the collab came in. And he was just like, can we try this? Can we try that? And I was like, let's try it.
Yeah, it would start with why. Oh, Joni likes this. And there's a certain aesthetic. That's why I'm asking. Okay. And then there's, well, can we try this? And we look at it. The key, no pun intended, about the key light. I know where the portrait cameras are going to be, and I know I need to put a hard light up there, right over it down the barrel. It looks like a soft light if it's on axis to the lens. It's a very simple thing to understand, knowing where the eye line's going, which camera's going to take it. But I'd work with Jeff, and we would tailor it for each song so that it still had that appearance of a cosmetically beautiful or handsome look to everything, and relative to a lens and where talent's playing. Here, they're not playing to a very wide house. They're really playing down center. Knowing where cameras are, knowing where lights are, knowing where lenses and eyeballs are going to be looking, we can get to a very handsome look. But also the scenic treatment, we broke things down, and I'd say, Jeff, why does this have this treatment? Let's build this look. Oh, okay. And then we would collaborate, and because it would start with, what do you do? Why? Okay. Well, have you ever thought of hey, okay, what are your ideas? What do you think? How do you feel? And that dialogue, and that's where collaboration happens. It's my favorite part of the whole thing, besides getting a great screen image, is about the opportunity to collaborate and come up with something better than the two of us individually could ever do alone.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm curious, because you said leadership has a certain expectation, understanding, and they know what they like. So obviously you follow suit. When you bring in outsiders, is there an element of, well, I'm not asking, Rick is asking, so can we do that? And that, I think, spurs a conversation, right? Like, I'm just really curious about that element.
Well, on that scale, because Joni has been the way she has for so long, we all know what she wants. But with this project, we were like, once again, trying a what if, and Rick would say, let's try this, let's try that. Having Lane there, which is Joni's brother, he was able to be kind of that soft balance between it, saying, we're trying something. Just trust us.
Right.
We always had the backup plan that, if she wanted more fill light, we could add it in. But as you see in some of the images that you're seeing, we got some nice drop off on her, which is something that we've really never been able to do with Joni. And it turned out really nice with all of our band and singers, not just Joni.
Right. Yeah.
Yay.
So I'm curious. So I'm curious in light of that, and we've all worked in, in situations like this where there are the sacred cows, there are the things that can't change, and then there's the things that. What is something that you creatively wanted to do that ultimately didn't work? Was there anything?
Not for me. I don't remember everything that didn't work, because we would drop it and move on to something. We'd get through the iterative process, get to something good. Hey, yeah, ooh, that's good. Let's do that. Let's not do this. So I never got near I didn't feel like we got to the precipice of trouble. I feel like we got to the precipice of, oh, we need to go this way now. Okay, that's better, and get there, because if you have trust in your collaborator, you can do anything. And so I never feel like we got to a trouble spot. I feel like we always got somewhere where it worked.
Michael, what about from your perspective as the director?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with Ricky. There was nothing we were really denied, but there were definitely parameters that were established before we got there that needed to be handled with kid gloves. You're in someone else's house, be respectful. But if you really believe in the vision, be gentle with the push, and you'll get there. Because it's about collaboration. It's about intuition. It's about vision, sharing the vision and getting there together. And I think you can always get to that place. I wish we had more audience. Small things, little things that would have changed it. I wish we had another, 20 feet over our heads. But you work with what you have, and you make the best. You plan for the best, and you execute to the best of your ability. And the rest is in God's hands. Not to be facetious, but you kind of throw your cautions, As a good director will always, no matter what happens, they're going to flex. Something's going to happen. Be ready for the accident. Embrace the accident.
So let's talk about one of those. Where did you push each other and maybe end up in a bit of an accident that you had to pivot from?
Blocking. They didn't want to go as extreme with the blocking. I really wanted to go. I'm a big fan, and this is nothing to do with this project necessarily. I'm kind of a fan of elevation worship. I love the way that they take their blocking from hip hop performance. Everybody's all over the place, but they're in their zones. I was hoping for more than that. I think we'd push to that, but I think these guys are in their zone. This is what they do, and it's not baby steps. I think it was big steps for them. It was good steps for us, but maybe next time out we'll get there. We kind of clashed on blocking a little bit. Oh, and I think once they got it and once they saw the results, proof is in the pudding. Sometimes when you present a vision, you can present all the theory in the world, and maybe you'll get there, but there's nothing like actually executing it, being able to point at it and say, no, if we adjust it accordingly, we'll have this. Shall we go for that next?
Okay, Jeff, what about from your perspective? Kind of same question.
I kind of agree with the same thing. I mean, the blocking, it was something different for us. Normally we have our singers in a straight line, and to try something different, to bring soloists out, it was very unique for us. But we had to get buy-in from everybody, leadership wise, on that.
I just found that they blossomed when they had their moment down, which is obvious. Moment downstage center. It's your moment as a soloist, as a featured player. You are going to blossom, and they did. Just to see that alone was, worth the trip.
Yeah.
So all of you are veterans in this industry. You've obviously worked in situations where the collaboration didn't gel the way that this one did. What lessons have you learned from those kind of atmospheres where it wasn't, as maybe the decision maker was not as flexible and as open as this particular team was? And what did you bring to this process to ensure, obviously this was a bit of speed dating, a really fast marriage, and ultimately then the cameras are rolling. And I'm curious, all of you from your perspective, this is just a question for the panel of what have you learned the hard way that ultimately specifically helps you build that trust so quickly, where the decision makers have given you the latitude to, not just shut it down right out the gate and actually let you experiment. There's a lot to that behind the scenes that you have learned to navigate that the way that you have. Is there anything you can give me specifically of some lessons you've learned along the way that inform this?
In terms of pushback, it's never about you. You know what I mean? It's about them. They have and you have to kind of embrace, love, understand it. If they're not going to cross the line with you, then bring your toolbox and cross over to their side and do what you can about enhancing and conveying that vision. I would recommend it's people politics. You've got to be a good leader, and sometimes that's a hug, and sometimes it should never be stomping and pointing and yelling. There's no time for that.
I think just to add to that, I think it's right. It's a collaborative effort. We don't necessarily need to all go out afterwards and be in love with each other, but you need to, I think, understand what the conflict is. Like, maybe try to put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, why are we butting heads on this particular topic? And maybe I can be the one to be flexible, unless you feel really strongly about it. But I think it's just sort of having that compassion to understand, okay, this person feels this way, and I'm trying to understand why, and maybe we could problem solve around that why. But yeah, I think that's kind of just exactly what you're saying.
One last thing I would just say is directing and leadership is kind of a crash course in megalomania. And you really do have to, it's great because everybody is following your whims and following your directives, but then you got to go home and be a normal person. I think it's really important to keep your ego in check and know that it's about the work. Don't take yourself too seriously, but take the work very seriously.
Have done your pre-production, be prepared. Walk in like you are prepared. When things change, understand why they've changed. If who's changing it isn't someone you like, that doesn't matter. It's what they're telling you. And if I've done my prep, I can speak to my prep and stand in that truth, offer that up as my idea. And if it still needs to change, understanding why it needs to change. And find out how to do that really well. My prep will have helped me do that. And so being prepared is most of 90% of what goes on set is about pre-production. It's about what I've done to prepare. So I can roll with anything. It becomes binary. It's this or it's that in that moment, not about me.
So elaborate a little bit on that preparation. What information, what materials, what things did you ask for from Daystar in advance to help you with that preparation walking onto set?
Lighting plot, what exists, set plans, inventory, every piece of equipment, every lens, how many people. I want every bit of information as far in advance as possible. I will draw my camera plot, send it to Michael. What do you think? If it's something that's a music performance, there's no shot listing per se, and then start asking a million questions. Oh, there's an audience. Oh, they're standing, and the ceiling's at 14 feet, and the top of heads is at 6. So let's see, how are we going to get cameras? Oh, the talent's on risers. Oh, okay, so the cameras have to be higher to get over the standing. Begin to break down everything. Get your head, build the set in your mind, then build it in reality on paper or draw it, and just understand every physical part of it, where the answer is going to come from, know where the rental equipment's coming from, I want full crew, I want full cast, I want to know everybody's height, I want to know everybody's color, I want to know, it goes on. Prep is everything. And once I have all that, I can just walk in light as a feather and say, hey, Jeff, let's make pretty pictures. And off we go. But it's a lot of prep, and it's all very important.
Michael, same question for you. As the director, what sort of data, what sort of tools, what sort of things are you looking for from the client to help you with your pre-production and preparing?
We got it all. They sent out wire renderings of what they had done before. That's a help. They also sent us a bird's eye view of the studio, the bigger studio, so we knew what kind of backswing, what kind of room we had to work in. I built my own version of the talent and the lineup. That was helpful for me and camera people and anybody else to, shortcut the communication in the moment, who, what, and when, and where. What else did I do for prep? I actually did a blocking plot for every single song. I also did blocking plots for every single camera approach on a per song basis, not only for our dirty pass, but for our clean pass. And back to what Rick said, prep is everything. Have it all down and then be flexible for inspiration and happy accidents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, always be ready for a great accident.
Yeah.
Capitalizing on those will bring you gold.
Yeah.
And realizing in that moment how good this can be. Great, let's do that and run with it.
It's true.
Definitely great stuff.
Would you like to see a finished product from the shoot? Let's look at this.
This is the day that you gotta make sure it's a good day. Yeah, it's a good day. You give me joy and I will rejoice 'cause it's a good day. Yeah, it's a good day. Let's go. Open up my eyes, thankful for this life that you've given me. Look at what I have, now that what I don't. You've blessed my life, baby. When I think of all the things that you have done for me, how
There's our drummer in the other room.
when I start to praise, I can feel the worries fade away.
If we do it again, I put audience in the drummer.
This is the day that you have made, so it's a good day. Yeah, it's a good day. You give me joy, I will rejoice 'cause it's a good day. Yeah, it's a good day. And I believe in God. From the rising sun till the day is done, I'm walking in your love. Help me not forget everything you said. Your joy is my strength. When I think of all the things that you have done for me, how can I be sick? When I start to praise, I can feel the worries fade away. 'Cause it's a good day. This is the day that you have made, so it's a
Go ahead and lower the audio. Let's I'm going to leave it running, but let's turn the sound down for the video. As we're closing, just in the last few minutes that we have together, what's one piece of advice you would have, open to the panel, one piece of advice that you would have for anyone here looking at this and learning out of this experience working together?
May you all be gifted with as cooperative and creative collaborators as we were going into somebody else's house. You pray for that gift. May everyone have that.
For me, it's bringing an attitude of fun and passion for what you do, and you will always have fun and passion for what you do. It's pretty simple.
Mine's more general. I think be curious, ask questions. I think it goes a long way to kind of discovering not just yourself as a technical person, as a craft person, but also just how it might impact the project as well.
I would say don't be scared to try something and really learn to lean on expertise of legends, and just don't be scared to try something.
Yeah, those are great answers. Everyone, thank you for participating today. Anything else that you'd like to add to as we're closing the conversation?
When you find talented collaborators, like this guy over here, keep them in your life. Make them a part of everything you do. Build your team, because there's no challenge that is too daunting, and ultimately will be as rewarding than working with friends.
If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this. It's not about gear. It's not about budget. It's not even about people. It's about thinking differently, right? It's about the collaboration that's happening under pressure. It's a common theme of asking questions, of being open-handed, of being humble and approachable and authentic in relationship, because relationship is really, that's been such a core thread through this entire conversation. Ultimately, everything that we've discussed, the question is, what do you do with this? Hopefully there's takeaways from this, whether you're serving in a church, whether you're serving in a studio environment, whether you're shooting for YouTube. I want to say thank you to you guys for being willing to pull back the curtain and to have this kind of conversation. I think our industry needs more of these kinds of conversations that, really try and dig more into the why rather than necessarily the how. And so thank you for your transparency today and your wisdom. And we're going to wrap here, but the conversation doesn't end. If you have some questions, if you'd like to have some one time, we're gonna stick around here for a few minutes and feel free to grab everyone. If you're looking for contact information, probably the easiest thing is everybody's Instagram handles. So Michael McNamara, Rick Siegel, Daystar Jeff, and AbelCine Jeff, and then myself. Thank you everyone for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the show.